Hello and welcome to this broadcast of Running on Love with God. My name is Lori Michelle, and in April of 2009, I was awakened to the voice of our Creator, and He said, go get pen and paper and start writing this down, and I listened, and here I am 9 years later from broadcasting from Israel, and I'm here in Israel, and my co-host, Anna Marie, is in Chicago. Hi, Anna Marie. And I broadcast every week a new topic and go deeper into more wisdom from our Creator about various life topics that we need to shed light on. And tonight's topic is about money, a favorite subject for many people. And I named it, What Will Happen to Money When God's Moshiach Arrives? Mashiach is also the Messiah for people who don't know the term Mashiach. And life will change dramatically, in dramatic fashion, when it comes to money, because let's face it, look around the world, we have a small percentage of people controlling the majority of the money, and there's a lot of people in financial pain. And that's not the way of God. God is all giving, and He gives us abundance. And in His plan, there is no lack, there's no starvation, there's no people in need. But in man's world, there is lack and starvation. And there are people who are very rich and people who are very poor. In the world to come, this won't be the case. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Anna Marie, and let you ask away. And also I want to say that I don't read the prophecies of what is supposed to happen to money. These discussions come directly from Hashem. I speak with Him in plain English, so I haven't researched this much. I do look things up when He says, Lori, Google it, but this is coming straight from the top, so to speak.
On the one hand, it sounds good that things are going to be more evened out and that people won't be suffering like they are. On the other hand, it sounds kind of like communism, which has never worked historically. Who is it who makes the decisions about who goes up and who goes down?
Right. I've said this in past programs that Hashem God is not a communist, although there are socialist ideals that are part of His plan, meaning there are some areas where we need to take care of each other. We need to have social responsibility. But governance in the world to come will come through theocracy, not through communism or democracy or any of the man-made models that we're seeing now, because truly none of them work. Democracy doesn't work. We think it works. It feels good, the pursuit of happiness. And for the most part, it looks like it's working, but there are a lot of broken parts. And we see this right now in America. America right now is unraveling. And it's a train wreck. You have to admit this. If you're looking at daily life in America, it's a horror. And that's the idea of democracy and everybody has a voice and freedom of speech and the pursuit of happiness. But we receive happiness when we follow God's plans and God's laws. So when you said it sounds eerily like communism, it's really not. In Hashem's world, I spoke about last week slavery. There are no slaves. We govern and choose ourselves. God gives us the ultimate freedom to choose, and He desires us to choose in every moment. And when it comes to money, our choices are sinful in this moment, by and large, around the world.
Then is this going to be voluntary? If you're saying things are going to even out, is it going to be a voluntary evening out, or is there going to be some kind of theocratic government that's telling you, no, you must do this?
He's saying to answer both. He's saying to answer both, meaning a theocratic government, no. Man, no. People, no. God, yes. the presence of God will be very known. Right now, he's invisible and concealed. And while a majority of people around the world do believe in his existence, we deny it. Even people who believe in God don't truly behave like he's watching. And he
Right.
truly is real. I do this all the time, and I say the words, he's real. And everybody's like, yeah, come on, I know he's real. But you don't act like he's real. You don't feel him in every moment like I do. You don't hear him speak to you in plain English. Some people do on occasion, and it's miraculous. But in every single moment, he's watching everything. Nothing escapes him. And in the world to come, we will know he's authentically king. And the idea of doing something sinful in his eyes won't even occur to us. It'll be that obvious to us. So will it be free will? It'll be our will that we want to please and do as our Creator wants us to do. And the reason he wants us to be more giving to each other is because that's who he is. He's all giving. And if we learn to release and give abundantly, we will heal the world. He wants us to realize that joy comes through giving. We receive, yes, of course, but we should be putting the receiving part of our ideals in the back burner. It should be about giving. The joy should be through giving.
One of the questions you wrote in your intro is, the poor believe they are too poor to give and should only receive. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. I have a charity running on love, and you can be giving without having any money by fundraising for others or for charity. You can put on a pair of sneakers and go for a walk and fundraise without reaching into your own pocket and giving a donation. You can volunteer your time. I've gone to the local soup kitchen in New Jersey and served food. You can volunteer your time and your energy. You don't have to give monetarily yourself to be giving and charitable.
Another one of your questions is, in God's plan, nobody suffers and everyone enjoys a life of plenty. Why then is there so much poverty and hardship in our world?
Greed and self-centeredness. People are not being outward. In Torah, we're taught to be outward, to think outwardly instead of self-centeredly, thinking of yourself first. So that's the way the world is designed by God himself. He's outward, he gives. Now, admittedly, God doesn't need. We are bodies that need to be fed, we need to be housed, and we feel separate because we're in this body and we feel separate from each other. But when we recognize that our true nature is spiritual and that we're truly connected to each other energetically, and we're responsible for each other, and we give to each other and we put each other first instead of ourselves, we will heal and we will all experience more abundance, not less. The more you give, the more you receive. In this world, though, it doesn't work because people are not programmed that way. They're not choosing that way. And that's where the worldwide awakening, when Moshiach arrives, will take place. People will start to understand that they need to be more like Hashem, God. That's why there's poverty, is because people are not functioning the way we are designed. When we die, I hear people cross over, Anna Marie, and the first thing I hear from a lot of people is, I'm so embarrassed because they're awake. When you're out of body, you're no longer separate. You're no longer egotistical and selfish. You have none of those needs anymore. And then you realize when you leave your body that when you were in the body, you were selfish and you did terrible things. It's an awakening process that's going to take place around the world where people will recognize our spiritual nature while we are incarnate. And they will recognize that God is real.
How sudden will these changes be?
He just used the word miraculous. I hope so. We could use some miraculous changes. He just used the word swift. Very swift.
Okay, so
and people are unprepared. Creditors. Right. Creditors are some of the most sinful people on the face of the earth. Credit card companies, charging usury interest rates, getting people into severe debt. In his laws, Jews are not allowed to lend money and charge interest. You're not allowed to charge interest. Jewish people, by the way, when I say Jews, Jewish people came from the 12 tribes, which were brothers. So we're inherently like a family. So if you were to lend your brother $1,000 and you charged an interest, that would be sinful, wouldn't it? Well, that's what God says.
Okay.
You take care of your family. And to loan money is a mitzvah. It's a good deed. So in Israel, I will just say, I don't want to go into the minutia of laws because I don't read them. I don't study Talmud. I'm not a rabbi. I'm just an awake mom who hears Hashem in plain English. But I will tell you that the beauty of being here credit-wise versus what I experienced in America is night and day. Would you like to hear how they do it here?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have a cold, by the way. I have a credit card, and it's not pay this and pay the minimum each month. Like in America, you buy something for $1,000, but you only have to pay the minimum, $50, but they charge you 24% usury interest rates, like a loan shark.
Right.
They're not allowed to do that here. You pay for the credit card. Let me drink some water, I'm coughing. You pay like $3 a month for the credit card, and you can split your payments up to 12 payments interest free over the year on any purchase. But there's no interest.
Okay, what if you can't make all the payments within a year? Then do they start putting interest?
No. I don't really know how it works because I pay my bills. I should ask someone. I don't really know the answer to that, but I always thought that was really wonderful because that's usually a ploy that furniture companies in America,
right.
12 months interest free. But that's how they do it here. There's not, payment.
Okay, and they do it on everything. It doesn't matter what you buy with the credit card. You can.
When you go to the checkout, they'll say, how many payments do you want?
Oh, interesting.
1, 6, 8.
And then that's what the charge is that shows up on your card.
It shows up every month.
No matter, even if you're buying a bottle of aspirin, you could make.
No, I think it has to be 100 shekel, which is $20, $30. It has to be
a decent amount.
And the thing about it that you need to recognize is that if you keep doing that, your monthly payments added together could be more than you can afford. So you have to keep cognizant over how much you're doing this. I rarely do it. Big purchases.
But it's actually good to be more aware of what you're spending rather than just paying the minimum payment like we can do in America.
And that is the point. The point in Torah is that Hashem doesn't want us to be in debt. And he doesn't want us to be in debt to people, because being in debt to people is creating a form of slavery. And there's many laws about credit and slavery, well, slavery, creditors and finances. I call it slavery because you do become a slave to your bills.
Right.
And a lot of people in America succumb to this. It's very attractive, especially Christmas time. People go berserk shopping for Christmas, buying extravagant gifts, and they're given credit lines when they probably don't even deserve those credit lines. And they find in January or February, they're saddled with all kinds of debt. And the joy of the holiday is long gone.
Right. So obviously the credit card companies aren't going to like the changes.
No.
In general, will people feel like everything is more fair, or will people feel like there are winners and there are losers?
At first, it will be both, he just said. I'm going to put my glasses on. At first, it will be both, because the wealthy will take a hit, and then the people who are struggling will see fairness for the first time. They'll see things evening out. There's a class warfare in America right now. There seems to be the haves and the have-nots. It seems the middle class is practically gone. When I was growing up, there was a big middle class. And now, a sizable family income is barely enough to make it. You know, it's really sad what's happened in America. It used to be that a woman could stay home and raise her children. And now, both parents need to work. And sometimes both parents working is still not enough to take care of their obligations. It's very hard. So it'll be both. It'll shake up the status quo, so to speak.
Do you have any idea of the level where it's all going to end up? I'm just trying to gauge whether I'm going to be one of the ones going up or one of the ones going down. I mean, like, is the level going to be such that a woman can stay at home?
Eventually. Hashem believes that that's a woman's right to be able to raise her children. And that has not been valued in the right way. That's one thing that's going to change dramatically, is how we view the female and motherhood and staying at home. It's been something sneered at, truly, over the years, that a woman's place is in the home, barefoot and pregnant. All these terrible, terrible ways of looking at the female are going to be something of the history books. It's the female energy that's going to rescue our world. So to stay home with your children and raise your children will be applauded, won't be sneered at, you won't be looked down upon.
But the standard of living for if everyone's going to be about on the same plane, what will that standard of living?
No.
It won't be?
No. Hashem is believer in reward, and when you work hard, you should be rewarded. And when you work hard and you are receiving abundance, it's you that should decide that you have enough. So when I say it's going to be leveled and there's going to be a redistribution of wealth, which is going to happen, it's going to be both voluntary and mandatory. The presence of God will be so visible, so palpable, that the wealthy will feel embarrassed to be lavishing jewels and diamonds next to someone who has nothing. It will be an embarrassment. It'll be hideous. But to have a diamond or to have a beautiful car or a beautiful home is not something that's against God. It's just checking yourself. What do you need? What makes you feel good? And why are you doing it? Is it to impress your rich friends that you have a Learjet? Or do you really need a Learjet because you're the president of the United States? I don't know. I don't know what his jet is.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's measuring. You need to measure yourself, but you also need to know that you're being measured. And it's a humiliation when you die if you didn't handle your abundance correctly. It's absolutely humiliating. There's a story, Anna Marie, that I heard. It's pretend, but I'll tell you the story. A man wrote his will, and I think I better not tell the story, but the gist of the story is that he wanted to be buried with his socks. I hope I don't mess it up. I'm a bad storyteller when it's someone else's story. But he wanted to be buried with his socks. And he was a Jewish man. So his family wanted to respect his wishes. And they tried to oblige him, but they weren't allowed. They weren't allowed because it was against Jewish law to bury him with his socks. So when they went to the lawyer afterwards and they sat with the lawyer had a letter from the man who died and said, by now you realize that when you die, you don't even take your socks. So I'm really messing the story up, but the gist of the story is everybody was going to squabble over what do they get from this man. But he wanted to teach them a lesson that he had this request to be buried in his socks, and you're not allowed to be buried in socks. You take nothing with you when you die. Do you understand?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so? I really messed this. I botched it totally. But the point is, when you die, you're naked, you're gone, your money's gone, everything's worthless, nothing has meaning other than the goodness that you left behind. So if you're a billionaire or a millionaire or 100,000aire and you didn't use your money for the good of God and everyone else first, when you leave here, it's a humiliation, it's a stain on your soul. Because that's really why we're here. What are we if we're not here to make this world a better place than we found it? We're not here to hoard. We're not here to show off. We don't get a prize for the most toys on the other side. We're here to make a difference in someone else's life.
Okay, so you can still have a nice house, but you can't have 10 houses, or you won't want to have 10 houses.
You have to measure. If Hashem measures everything, that's the one thing after I was awakened, he repeated over and over again. Everything is measured. Every good deed, every wrong deed, everything is measured. So you need to consider every action, every word you speak, everything is deliberate. Although I'm not always deliberate, I think about everything that I do and say every day. Is this going to be good for someone? When I make an omelet for someone and I am cutting it in half because we're sharing it, I give the bigger half to someone else because I want them to enjoy it. If I make eggs and I'm cooking my eggs first for whatever reason and they turn out better than the next set of eggs, I give the better set to the guest because I want them to enjoy. You have to think that way. You have to reprogram your mind not to always want to win and pull one off on someone else. There are people like that, believe it or not, and maybe they're listening or maybe they're not, but people who always want to make a good deal. I want to get the best deal. They go to the car dealer and they can afford more, but they want to get the best deal out of the guy instead of a fair deal. Well, maybe the guy needs to earn a living.
Right.
Right? So I personally, when I shop from people I like. There's many vendors in town. I go where they smile at me. And they say, "How are you today?" and "Good morning." That's where I go to shop. So,
one of the questions you asked in your intro was, is there such a thing as giving your fair share?
what do you think the answer is?
Well, I would think yes.
Okay, so what do you think your fair share is? When I said that in the write-up, I said many people think they're giving their fair share. So what do you think your fair share is?
Whatever is comfortable for me.
Okay.
Give that wouldn't hurt me to give.
Okay, that's fair. But some people think that because Hashem has said 10% is the minimum, that everybody should give 10% tithe of their income, that's what they give. And if they make $10 million, they'll give $1 million. And they gave their fair share, and they can go and have 2 Ferraris and a Rolls Royce and travel the world and lots of jewels. And that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not, in God's eyes, that's being unfair to the people who don't have. Although it's not fair for the government to say that people who have that much money should be taxed so they can give it away.
Right.
We need to be our own police. And that's where the world will change. People need to police themselves. So just because you have $1 billion and you gave 10 million, I don't even know what 10% is. My math is terrible.
Oh, I can't do that either. It might be
100 million. Give 100 million away. How many millions do you need? If you're very wealthy, you need probably more. And I'm not here to tell you what you deserve or don't deserve. You have to decide that. But at the end of the day, when you leave here, you face the heavenly court, and it's a real deal. I'm not making this up. There is literature about this. It exists. And people who stand before that court who didn't give what they could and do what they could while they were here are humiliated. The worst part is they're awake. Right now, we're in this zombie-like state. You think you're just Anna Marie and I'm just Lori to a certain extent. We're probably more awake than most people. But when you cross over, all your memories flood back. You made a contract with our Creator, a covenant, to come here and bring His essence and goodness into this world and create godliness in this world. And if you fail, when you leave and you remember what you agreed to do while you were here and you failed, you are humiliated. The pain and remorse is painful. So trust me, wake up while you're here. Be giving, be loving, be like Him. All He does is desire to give joyfully. And the more we give in the world to come, the more you will receive. So God bless you. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it was enlightening. And go to my website, lauriemichelle.net. There are more programs there. And with God's help, within a few months, I will be releasing my first book, and it will be very enlightening about many topics. So join us again. God bless you. This is the work of world peace. May there be world peace in our time. God bless you.